Okay. Hi, Tesni.
Hi
Um,
there.
so nice to meet you. Thank you so
Nice
much
to meet you.
for chatting with me today. I'm sorry that we had to chat about, this issue, but I thank you again for, talking about your journey. So if you'd like to start, the floor is yours.
Perfect. So I've had a string of losses over the past few years, but really it's to do with my brother. So I lost him on the 22nd of the 7th, 2022. It was actually my birthday. It's my 26th
Oh,
birthday. Yeah, that was nice. So he was 31. And he did suffer with a disease called cystic fibrosis. It's a genetic disease. But having said that, it was still a shock because he, in a lot of ways, was doing very well and he was getting better because they brought out a new drug called Kaftrio. So he was on that, and it affects your lungs. Long story short, CF and a few of your other organs. So his lung function was always a bit low. He was struggling to get up and down stairs. He was always very thin because again, it affects your digestion. So on this drug, he was putting on weight. He was going to the gym. His arms were looking good. He could get up and down the stairs, no problem. And you're thinking, wow, I think because when he was first born, they sort of said he'll be lucky to see 25. So the fact he was like 26, 7, 8, he just year after year we're thinking I think we all just assumed he's just going to keep going until there's like a cure, and then he'll never be healthy. He probably won't get to 70, 80, but I think he's defying the odds here. So it was just a shock out of nowhere when all of a sudden he just went downhill so quick. Because he also had liver disease. So the problem with this Kaftrio drug is it's very strong on your liver. So it's a bit of a catch 22. It's like it's doing really well with your lungs and everything, but we need to keep an eye on your liver because it's already taken a pounding. And he was already, his eyes would go a bit yellow, which is always a sign of jaundice. But again, I think we'd got used to that over the years. So they upped his drug in the end. They'd said, look, we've looked at your liver readings and we think we can up it from literally half a dose to a full tablet. So he did that, and then within a few days, he got a shooting pain and just went bright yellow. Just never
mm,
seen anything like it. So they took him into hospital, and it was, I think, probably with 2 weeks from that pain that he had, and then going into ICU. And then, yeah, he was gone. And it was just, as I say, my whole family, we just weren't expecting it. I think when you watch someone get more and more poorly, you're part of you's maybe looking at that and understanding what's coming, or part of you might think, God bless them, I don't want them to suffer. And actually, a big part of me's happy that it didn't go the other way and that it wasn't his lungs, because they would have been in and out of hospital and on probably an oxygen tank, and he'd have absolutely hated that. He was a
right.
very proud person. So I suppose actually, given the choice between the two, we'd have all chosen that one. But unfortunately with that, it just always, it's like I will never wrap my head around it. I still wake up now and have to like relive it all, which sounds silly because
Yeah,
I know he's gone, I know what happened, I know his liver couldn't cope, there was nothing anyone could do, but I'm still, it's like I still wake up like, oh God, that did happen. And it's like a disappointment, like, God, this is my life. And it feels like a mistake. It feels like someone's made a massive mistake and I need to try and fix it. Obviously, you can't, but it's weird. It's almost like as time goes on, it's like I've got less chance to fix it. It's like, why is no one panicking? Why is no one trying to run back there and speak to the doctors? But obviously, yeah, there is nothing to do. You just can't. It's like your subconscious just won't stop thinking
right.
about it and trying to piece it all together. So I mean, it's a journey that will never stop, and I understand that. And it's been a bit of a ride, but I think hopefully I'm starting to get the tools a bit better to deal with it. um but yeah, it's just a shame that that hole is never going to go, and that pain, you'll always carry it every day. It's a bit different every day, but it'll always be there. But then
Right.
I think that's an ode to them, isn't it? Grief is it proves that you love them still. It's just the consequence of love, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Was he your only brother?
He was indeed, yes. We were so close as well. I mean, we were still living together up until the last couple of years. So again, that feels a bit like, not that, other siblings are just spares. That's obviously not the point, but I do feel very alone now. Because I am technically now an only child, and that is such a specific grief.
Right.
I think because it's like, there's certain memories, there's certain conversations that only me and him would have, things only me and him would find funny. And I think you expect to go through your life with your sibling and, deal with your parents getting ill and dying. It's like, God, I've got to do all that on my own now. So yeah, it just feels like I've always had my little buddy to my side. He's always been there, can always rely on him. And it's like all of a sudden there's a blank space, and it's like, wow, I'm on my own here.
Yeah.
But then having said that, when everyone, if people ask, have you got any siblings? I always say yes. I'd never write him off like that. I just then
Right.
have to say, but he did pass away. Because, 26 years of my life, he was like, is a massive part of my life. He's 99%. He's one of these, because he didn't work, he'd be ringing you all the time. He'd be texting, sending silly memes and stuff. He was just one of those. He's just always in your ear. So to go from that to like radio silence and it's weird to think that obviously for 26 years he was 100% of my life, but I'll be getting to a point where I'm like 50, 60, and it's like he was only in my life for half of it, less than half of it as time goes on. And
Yeah.
again, that messes with my head all the time because that doesn't feel right, because he's still so important and he'll
Right.
always be important. But the time, the percentage is getting smaller every day, which again, that's hard to deal with as well.
Hmm. You said that you've found tools to help you. What are some things that you've found that have helped you through this journey?
So there's a few things that I've tried, and I think it's a thing of trial and error. There is no correct answer to it. You just have to figure it out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I did do a bit of therapy, and that really helps sort of understand certain feelings and how to go forward with them productively, especially if your grief will be very different to someone else's grief,
Right.
and it's important not to get in the way of each other. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but if you need to give each other space, or if you need to communicate your grief properly, it's a therapist is a good way to do that without causing family arguments and all the rest of it. I also did actually speak to a medium a couple of times as well, and that's up to people, obviously, if they believe in that kind of stuff or not. But that comforted me so much, and I really felt like I needed that, and it gave me renewed hope that, I think it's not the end, and I think that there's signs everywhere that he's trying to give me, and whether it is or not, is if it makes me feel better, it doesn't matter. So
Right.
I hold on to that. And I think I'll probably end up doing this medium like once a year, just so I kind of feel like I've spoken to him in a weird way through a person, but
Right.
I feel closer when I've done that. Um, Other things, like, it's difficult because it's a balance, keeping yourself busy is a good distraction to a certain degree, because you don't just want to stay stagnant, and you've got your life, you need to enjoy it and grab it and go for it as much as you can. But it's also so important to just sit and just be overwhelmed with grief sometimes. That's okay. It's difficult and it hurts, but that's part of it, because if you try and ignore it, it is going to come for you, and it will start eating away in different areas that you don't even know. You're getting a bit more ratty, maybe you're not getting as much sleep, maybe you're not concentrating, and again, that's all to do with you not looking it in the face, and you have to sit down and do that sometimes. And I write a diary as well, like a letter, I suppose, to him. So instead of texting him, it's like I just write down any funny little things, or quite personal things that, again, I'd only tell him, or I'd only speak to him about because he'd find it funny or he'd understand. I just write it all down. Obviously, I know I'm not going to get a response, but it's been quite helpful now. It's been 2 and a bit years. I print off this like massive reams of paper of all these words, and I can read back through it, and I can see how my mind is progressing through, how dark it was at the start, how depressive and angry, and then how things have, how I look at things differently, different issues that pop up and how I'm dealing with them. That's actually really helpful to see that I am making some kind of a progress through this journey.
Right.
Um, and that's, yeah, I'd say that again, if I really need to sort my head out, is I have to write it down, even if I have to write it down a few ways until I feel like I've got it out. So that there's some tools that's helped me. And I mean, everyone says try, talk about it. But I think you've got to be careful who you talk to, because again, blessing my partner, one of them, he's so good with the physical side of stuff. If I need a massage, if I need him to cook me dinner, if I need to be, run me a bath, he's absolutely fantastic at that. But some people aren't as good with the words. They say things like everything will be okay. That's just the biggest no
Yeah, or
because
everything
you
happens for a
understand.
reason.
Yes, time's a great healer. Not
Yeah.
necessarily, because again, it doesn't make it any easier. You just deal with it better. That's the only difference. That's, I think, what people try and say. Literally, all you can do with someone is just sit and listen to them. You
Mhm.
might not even be able to say anything helpful, but that's because there isn't. There is literally nothing you can say, and it's uncomfortable. It's
Right.
very uncomfortable to sit and, watch someone break down, they're broken, and you can't. I think it's human nature to try and do, no, it's okay, look at it this way, or that'll be all right. It's just, you just again have to wallow in it. And I think when you find someone who's good at doing that, then, you need to try and rely on leaning on them. And again, any opportunity, like now, for example, I don't get many opportunities to just talk about it, even from the start to finish, because when it happens, of course, it's fresh and everyone's asking you about it, or maybe trying to avoid asking you about it. But it's like I still need to say it. I still need to process it. Every time you talk about it and tell your story, you're processing it in a different way.
Right.
So yeah, if any opportunity you can to keep getting it out bit by bit, as much as it hurts, if you're crying or if you end up laughing, that's fine. But it just keep, and again, you're keeping their, you're bringing them forward because you're still talking about them, you're still referencing them, and that in a way you're getting a bit of them back.
Hmm.
And that's the best way we can do it, really, is just keep talking about them.
Yeah. What is your brother's name?
His name was Bryn.
Bryn.
So my dad's Welsh, so obviously mine and his name, yeah, they're Welsh names. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
How has the dynamic in your family changed now that Bryn has passed away?
It has, yeah. It's again, that's been a roller coaster. So because my mum was basically his carer. They were super close. I mean, he was 31, never moved out, didn't have any intention of moving out, but that worked for them. That was great. But they were like two peas in a pod. So that I remember there were times, obviously, when I used to still live there, I'd be in my bedroom getting ready for bed and whatever, and they'd both come in. So my brother would be like sat on the end of the bed, and my mum would be sat on a chair, and they'd be nattering away, like not including me in the conversation. I'm thinking, hang on here, like I'd like to try and go to sleep now. I've got work tomorrow, whatever it is, and they're just like in their own world. So yeah, they had a very special relationship. But then obviously part of that, as growing up as a healthy child, you do kind of, all of her, well, most of her attention and energy had to go on him, which is absolutely, I'd have done the same thing. If you've got an ill child, you've got to. So I think I probably grew up always feeling a bit like, Bryn comes first, which again, too right. My dad was very much like, we'll go out and, you know, be the breadwinner, but he didn't really want to do the proper parenting side of things. I think partly because he knew, obviously, with Bryn's illness, what was coming, and I think he wanted to try and distance himself a little bit, maybe protect himself, which didn't work anyway.
Right.
So when it all first happened, my dad went straight into denial. As in, he was literally the next day he was out sunbathing. And my mum's like, does he realize his son's just died? And we're trying to sort out, what urn to pick out, and he's just out there having a jolly. So she wanted to hurt him, I think. She didn't, so that's fine. Whereas she just wanted to talk about it. Didn't even matter who it was. Postman Pat turn up and she'd somehow twist the conversation to my son's just died, tell him the whole story, which I found overwhelming because I just needed to be alone and wallow in it.
Right.
So she was having people around the house all the time, arguing with my dad, and it was all just, yeah, it was just all getting a bit too much. But again, we all grieve in different ways. So you have to be just give each other space. And then eventually, after a few months, as my mum started to not pick herself up, but I suppose her journey moved forward a little bit. And then that's when it hit my dad. And then he was a mess and crying all the time. And then she was almost like, well, you need to catch up, like, why weren't you doing this at the start? So she had
Right.
then had no sympathy for him. So
Oh,
it's just, and you have to just be so patient. And even me and my mum, like, we ended up having to have a sit down and a good chat about everything, because I think she just lost sight. Everything became, I've lost my son. Losing a child's like the worst thing that you can go through. And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to who have lost siblings, they all say the same thing. And I've actually, unfortunately, made the same mistake. People ask, "Oh, how's your mum and dad?" They never ask about you. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
but I've lost, and I think someone said once, when you lose your parents, you've lost the past. When you lose a child, you've lost the future. And when you lose a sibling, you've lost both. And that really has always resonated with me, because you always expect to grow up with that person and then you pass on together slash same sort of time. So you're kind of like, stuck in the middle nearly. And again, I can't imagine what it's like losing a child, and I hope I never go through that. So certain things we could relate to each other, and other things it was almost like she was trying to top trump nearly. So again, we had to, through my therapist, I sat down, we worked out exactly how I was going to say things without causing more damage. And we got through it, which, I think you've just got to be respectful of each other's grief. So the dynamic has changed. There's a lot of teething issues at the start, but it's now, I've always been more like my dad. So, and I've noticed, like, my brother used to side with my mum and pick on my dad,
Mm.
and I wouldn't really normally get involved. But now I'm finding I'm sort of in the middle sometimes. And it's like, oh, well, actually, my dad's kind of right on this one, or I'll try and support my mum. And it's so I do sometimes feel like I'm nearly refereeing between the two. But it also means, I suppose, in sort of a sad way, that I sort of lost my mum at the start, when she was grieving and everything. And it's, she was not available, no one was.
Right.
But now I mean, she said it herself, like, all my attention can now be on you. So part of me is like, as much as, of course, it's devastating he's gone, and I'd give my right arm to have him back, but I've now, my mum, it's all about me, I suppose, which, yeah, it's not really a nice way to put that, I guess, but it's like I can fully bask in just all of her time and energies going on me. And same with my dad as well. We all know how important it is to spend time. So we all make such an effort now to go out and do things, or even if it's just a quiet cup of tea, they're just really important moments, because you never know when it will be your last. So
Right.
it's settled a lot more now. And we're all, it changes you so much, and you're all different people. And as much as there will be friction, I think it's so important to just try and weather the storm and stick together with it, because you'll come out so much stronger afterwards, because you've been through something. You'll always be going through it. And it's so terrible that I think it's one of those, it'll either push you apart or it'll bring you together. And
Right.
we've worked really hard to try and obviously do the latter. And yeah, it's well, I think we're in a good place now, dynamic wise.
That's good because yeah, it definitely can be very hard in terms
Very.
of family dynamics. So the fact that you guys willingly put in the effort to work through it together, that's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand you can't pick your family. But I think if you at least get on with each other, then you've just got to make every effort because you've only got one mum, one dad, that, and that's it. So if you can pull together, then it's the best because as much as your grief's all different, you're all still going through it at the same time. They're
Right.
sometimes the best people you can go to. So, I might be having a down day and I'll ring my mum and she'll literally be crying as well. Like I'm just having an awful day. So, yep, same. But at least you're going through it together.
Right. Have has your dynamic with your friends changed? Have they surprised you, good or bad?
Yes, actually, I've had a few friends that I think I'm very maybe glass half empty. So I always from the get go, I was like, I can't rely on anybody. No one's going to understand. So I'm quite big on pushing people away. Whereas my mum's very optimistic about people, and I think she always thinks the best of them. So I think she's found disappointment with a lot of her friends where if because I've just didn't expect anything from anyone because
Mm.
I've just got that mentality unfortunately. I've been surprised that because you don't know who's lost what. Everyone's going through their own pain, so some people have really stepped forward who weren't sort of in my inner circle, but I've recognized actually you said the right thing by either not saying anything and just listening, or you're always checking in, or you actually came over and made the effort during it wasn't a funeral but it was kind of like a celebration of life. And he's got well, he had loads of friends, bless him, but he's got three core friends that still to this day they come over every Tuesday and sit with my mum and have dinner with her, and it's
Oh,
just a time they can talk about Bryn or just laugh about their week or whatever, and that's so special that they still do that. And again, they might not, it might 10 years time we might not see him again, who knows, but for now it's so lovely that they do.
yeah,
So yeah, I've been, as I say, I've been more impressed. And I'm not saying that you should just expect the worst from people because, it's probably too extreme. But I think it's good to be wary that it's human nature to just, as I said before, just to be too uncomfortable with that
yeah,
conversation around death and grief, and you are going through something so terrible and there is nothing I can do to fix it. And as I say, some people have either been through something like that, so understand, or just naturally they know that you're in pain and they know that they can just be, I'm on the sidelines, I'm here. You'll always get people, if you need anything, I'll be here for you. And a lot of them you can tell, no, you won't. If I ring you up in the middle of the night, you're not going to do anything about it. But
right,
there's a few who you test them and they actually do. And they are, yeah, you have to hold on to them. I'm quite cutthroat. I was always a bit cutthroat before with cutting people out if they weren't, a positive energy to be around. But I'm even more. Um, I've just got no patience now, so I'm really specific about who I spend my time with. And again, I'm trying to tell my mum like some of the people that she's hanging around with, they just drag her down. They're very depressive. It's all, oh, this is wrong in my life, that's wrong in my, and we've all got problems. But I said, some people, they bring you light in your life, and they should lighten the load, and you should
right,
just be surrounding yourself with those people, which I think I've pretty much got down with a T. We've got friends for different things. You got your colleagues, which you can be friendly with, which might help you at work. You'll see them for a drink. You've got other friends you might see once a year for a laugh. And then you've got those friends who you can ring up. You might not even see them often, but you can ring them up. They know the deal. And I think she's now starting to reassess who she's surrounding herself with. Because again, it's so important. We've just after something like that, you've just got nothing left to give. You're on reserve. So you don't really want to be wasting your time or energy on anyone that's just going to keep sucking the life out of you. And it works both ways. You want to be able to rely on someone.
right.
And if you can lean on them, then they can lean on you, vice versa. So yeah, I think I've learned to actually appreciate the best in people as well through this, that people aren't all that bad. There's a few people out there who will help and who will understand, but you've just got to be open to seeing it, but also be careful of the ones who just want to take as well.
Yeah. I think that was one of my hardest lessons on my journey was
Mm,
thinking that people that I thought were going to be there for me completely disappeared.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, I think that was definitely one of the harder
It's
parts.
very telling, isn't it? But then I
Yeah.
suppose it's the culling that needs to happen,
Hmm.
because then at least push comes to shove in an emergency, who have you got round you? And actually, that's sometimes it takes a massive loss or tragedy like that to reevaluate. Otherwise, how else are you going to test those friendships? So,
Right. Yeah, because I'm kind of like, I was kind of your mom.
yeah,
So I was like, oh, but yeah, it was a tough lesson to learn.
yeah, it is. I take it that you've reevaluated and you've now got a sort of a support network around you with
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it took a few years, but
Yeah,
I'm
and
getting there.
sometimes it does. Yeah, it's people are very complicated, and I think you can go years of enjoying someone's company, and it'll only take them to do a few things, and you think, oh, hang on a second, I didn't like that, or
Yeah.
you're not being very sincere, or actually you've not stepped up when I really needed you. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's using, it sounds awful, but it's using people as well for their strengths. Like I said before, I would always lean on my partner for, if I need him to take me anywhere or cook or clean or whatever it is. But I know to not try and have those deep conversations with him, because bless him, he'll try and help, but he'll say the wrong thing and then I'll rip his head off. And then it's, he doesn't deserve that, and then
Yeah.
that's damaging the relationship. Where there's other people, it's like, I'll go to you if I need a real serious chat, I'll probably cry, I'll go to you for that. If I need like career advice, I'll go to my dad. I think it's about understanding what role people play in your life, and I think if you use them in the right way, then you've cracked it. But it takes a long time to get to know someone, and for them to prove themselves in those ways to you as well.
Right. Has there been anything that anyone has said to you that you're like, oh, that was such good advice, or the other way, you're like, I can't believe you just said that to me?
Yeah, there was definitely at the time there was thoughts and prayers. That's like, that means nothing. That's just a fluff. What? Don't say that. Everything will be okay. That's another one. Time's a great healer. Look on the bright side. Yeah, all of those. It's like, no, don't. But yeah, I mean, again, at the same time, one of my friends who surprised me, she just said there's no words. And I thought, yeah, that's right, actually, there are no words. There is nothing you can say, but just, as I say, just sit and listen.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was quite telling. And again, the fact of losing your sibling, you're losing the past and the future. That hit home quite hard. And I actually lost, typical, I lost my favorite colleague, bless him, like 2 weeks after my brother and at his funeral. So he must have been 50 odd. And his son spoke at the funeral. He was like 19, bless him. And his speech was just so beautiful, so eloquent. And he said something like, grief is the memory of love. So again, you sort of think this hurts so much, but then I kind of want it to hurt, because it means that I love him. It's, if you felt nothing, then you've really have lost him at that point. So that kind of gives me comfort as well, that actually it hurts a lot, but then that's kind of a good thing as well. And that,
Yeah.
there will be days in that grief that you can still laugh about something silly they did, or you can still talk about them. It hurts, but it's important hurt, and you've got to keep hurting, unfortunately, and you manage it better.
Right.
I couldn't have got through this conversation a couple of years ago without bawling at every corner. And yeah, I've still got a lump in my throat, it still feels heavy in my stomach, but it feels so nice to talk about him and to talk about how, what I've been through, and obviously to talk to someone who can relate to that and who understands and is respectful. It's terrible that we're in this situation, like you said at the start, but it's nice that you can stand next to people quietly with this grief, that that everybody's, we're going through it together. We can't fix each other, but we're here together, and that's big in itself.
Yeah, that was honestly the biggest reason why I wanted to start this, is because I just felt so alone.
Mm,
And, obviously none of my friends have ever been through losing their sibling, and it would make people uncomfortable.
mm,
And I don't think it should be uncomfortable. Obviously, it's a hard conversation to have. No one wants to talk about this, but it's a conversation that needs to happen.
absolutely.
So I was like, if I can find people who have been in a situation, not just a sibling, if anyone's been on a grief journey, at least they know they're not alone. I know I'm not alone, and people watching this know that they're not alone.
Yeah, 100%.
Something could
Yeah.
resonate with anyone that's watching one of the videos.
Yeah. Well, that's why I joined the Facebook group, because I got to, like yourself, I just felt so isolated and alone. Like, as much as my family are grieving, they don't understand my specific grief. So I just felt like I really need to speak to other people who have lost a sibling specifically. And yeah, there'll be lots of posts on there that I can't relate to, but every now and again there'll be one that's like word for word. I'm like, yes, I'm there with you. I completely understand, and that is comforting in itself. And again, it's so important to have that conversation. It's silly, isn't it? Because it's death and grief. It's coming. We've all got to go through it. And I think if you live long enough, then you're going to go through tragedies, unfortunately. And if you don't experience a tragedy, it's probably because you're it. It's a horrible way to put it,
Right.
but that is life. And I think until you've been hit hard with something like that, it really puts it into perspective, and you kind of lose that like childhood innocence. It's like the last bit of growing up that you do. You could be an adult in your 30s and think, well, I'm a grown up, but until you've been hit with that, you just don't. You see life so differently, and you have to really evaluate what you're doing with yours, because time is limited. You don't know when it's going to end. And yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of watching people you love pass on and die, sometimes before their time, sometimes in unfortunate circumstances. And it's part of the package. And then you think, well, if I'm going to carry on, then I need to make sure, unfortunately, the bad side of life, that the grief, the loneliness, the anger, the sadness, all of it, that's coming regardless. That will find you. But I think you have to make your own happiness. It's out there, but you've got to work for it. And unfortunately, it takes one awful 5 minutes of watching someone die or something like that, that it's like, how many happy days have I got to have to like counterbalance this? I was nearly trying to do like mathematical equations to try and figure out, like, is this worth carrying on, because nothing is going to fix this. There's no amount of holidays or fantastic meals or parties, whatever, to like counteract the heaviness of this situation. But I think it's after a while you start to realize, like, you value those happy moments so much more. And then you make a real effort to go out and find them.
Hmm.
So that's probably sort of the journey that I'm on now. I'm just trying to make myself have a lot of opportunities for happiness, whatever that is. And it doesn't need to be booking holidays left, right, and centre. It's just taking a stroll out in the sun because it's sunny. Like, go out and get it. Even a bit of vitamin D, that'll make you feel better. Or going and ringing your friend and going for a cup of tea somewhere, or whatever it is, find it in the big or the small. It's so important to grab that, and yeah, to have those serious conversations that are uncomfortable and are sad. But it's just like not in our culture, is it? There's loads of tribes and things out there where it's like death is is important as life, and it's celebrated, and they talk about it, it's normal. And I think that's probably is a bit dysfunctional in our society, that it's taboo. You don't want to talk about it, or because you might start crying, and I don't know how to deal with that. And again, because you can't say anything, you can't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of the hardest journeys that we've been on.
Absolutely.
What is your favorite memory of Bryn that you want to share?
Oh man, there's so many. Some would be too embarrassed for me to say. Gosh, I'm gonna have to pick one now. Put me on the spot a bit here. There's a lot with his friends, because his friends are just round all the time. I think so. When we were kids, so we'd got the attic in my mum's house. It was like the playroom, and it was badass. Like, we had everything in there. It was the best play times. And him and his one of his best friends, Cameron, they used to. I mean, I must have been what? I must have been like 6 years old or something. So he must have been like 12. And they'd say, right, we're gonna hide. We're gonna turn all the lights off, and then you can be the monster. So I'd have to go up, pretend to be a monster, try and find them. And I remember there was like we'd got like a playhouse kind of in the corner, because my dad was a carpenter, so he'd sort of made like a mini wooden house thing. And there was a door with a letterbox in it. So me being obviously very small, 6 years old, I thought, oh, I'll try and climb up and over. So I put my feet in the letterbox and was trying to peep over, and without even thinking, Bryn and his friend, they probably abuse this was. They actually kicked my toes. I don't know how they didn't break them. Obviously, just knee jerk. They're scared. Oh my God, she's going to get over. Quick, what do we do? So, of course, I'm now on the floor crying, and they're doing the no, no, it'll be okay. Like, we'll give you chocolate and sweets. Don't tell mummy. Just like your typical older brother
Yeah.
mischief. We used to have a little go kart, because he was massive into his cars. And yeah, we had a go kart, and down the driveway to get into the garage, it's quite steep. So he used to, again, modifying this like toy go kart so that it went faster, or he painted it a different color. And we'd used to zoom down on this driveway, so I'd be facing backwards, so I couldn't even see where he was going. But the trust I had, I thought, oh, he's like a professional race driver. Nothing will go wrong. And we'd do it for hours. We'd just go up and down and up and down. And I'd love the fact that I'm basically being driven. I'd ask, oh, can I drive this time? No, you're not old enough, or you're going to break it. But I didn't really mind deep down, and he always got his way, bless him. He really knew, he just got everyone wrapped around his finger. So
Yeah.
but again, we didn't really mind that, because he gave us a lot back, bless him.
Those are nice memories.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
See, it's nice. I don't know, I'm sure in the beginning, looking back on those memories, there are a lot of tears.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's nice now that you can look back and smile and laugh and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And even even the memories where I think, God, yeah, he really teased me then, and that wasn't a nice thing to do as a brother. And all the arguments that we had. That's another thing I do. I write down every memory that pops up into my head. And it
Mhm.
might be something that Christ, I was having a bowl of cereal the other day. He used to love his cereal. He'd have it after every meal. So he'd have dinner, and then he'd have a massive bowl of Cocoa Pops.
Oh,
I
I love
just
coconut.
Oh yeah, he loved it. Loved his cereal. And I actually remembered that you could get like the little toys in some of the cereal boxes.
Yeah.
And he'd always, the boxes that are like fresh in the back of the cupboard, he'd go through them, stick his hand in to try and find the little toy before I could get them. So every time I'd be like, oh, I'm so excited. We've finished this box of Cocoa Pops or whatever. We're going to go on to the next one. I'm going to get the toy. And he'd be just there giggling, like, yeah, go on then. So, of course, I don't, I'm like, you've already been in it. What? So yeah, he's such a cheeky little devil. So, and things like that, you can forget things like that for years.
Yeah.
So I always just write them straight down, and I've got like a box that I just put all the memories into.
I love that.
Yeah, because I think part of me is just worried that, especially the older I get, that I'm just going to forget these silly little moments, whether they're big or small or good or bad. It makes up a person's life, those moments and those memories. So I always write them down, even like remembering his handwriting. His handwriting was always very small and thin, but it was always quite neat. Remembering how he'd cough or sniff or giggle. People have different laughs, don't they? Considering the situation and all the different silly haircuts that he had, the girlfriends, the cars. I just want to remember every single moment. So yeah, anything like that, I pop it down and I write it down and just keep it so that I sometimes when I'm feeling like I need to connect or I just need to go through it, I can just go through all the memories and it really does take you back and you can literally, it's almost like you can smell the same smells and you're fully in that moment, and it's almost like a little cheat code, like you're
Yeah.
replaying that little bit of your life again. So I
Oh, that's
think they're so
beautiful.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, at my house, we have pictures of my sister everywhere. There's
Yeah,
not one room where there's not a picture of her. So,
that's lovely.
do you guys talk about him a lot?
Yeah, every time I go back home, yeah,
Good.
my mum and myself, yeah, we'll always talk. I think on the Tuesday night club as well, I think the boys, they'll often, be talking about their cars or whatever, and then it's like, oh yeah, did you know Bryn did this, or he raced that guy in one, or that car show. So yeah, we're always talking about him, or if I see, something that triggers something, I'll take a picture, send it to my mum and say. But then that's another thing that I get a bit worried about is that obviously once I've lost my mum and my dad, it's like less and less people who knew him, who I could talk to about him with.
Yeah.
My partner knew him, but again, that was so they must have known each other about 4 or 5 years, and they got on like a house on fire, so they've got lovely memories together as well, which is great. But again, obviously there's a whole other god knows how many years that he missed out on. So and then there'll be a point where I can't say to him, oh, do you remember when Bryn did that, because he wasn't there for it. So
Yeah.
I'm really trying to make the most of the people who knew him as long as I did. And obviously before that, my mum's got memories of him as a baby and toddler that I wasn't privy to. And that's lovely to hear those stories as well.
Hmm.
So even though I wasn't there, I can still kind of take that down as a memory as well of him. And yeah, I think that's so important, again, just to keep talking about them, or even just as, it doesn't have to be memories. It's, oh, this situation's happened today, what do you think he would think of that, or what do you think he'd have said? There's little things like his friends going off getting married, or they've got someone pregnant, and it's like, oh, what would he say to that? And it's even just then, it's that's nice to do that. Or I find a lot, like in restaurants, I'm ordering food that I know he would have ordered more
Right.
than like what I I would have picked, because I kind of feel like he's there then, because or every time I have a big bowl of cereal, I've gotten into my cereal after I eat. I'm like, really fancy some Cheerios now. So yeah, I've got some like
Funny.
Brinisms coming through.
Yeah.
But what about yourself? Do you manage to talk about your sister a lot?
Oh, yeah. Her name is mentioned daily in our house.
It's good.
Yeah. I have a we have a new niece. Well, she's a little over a year old, but she is her twin.
Oh
She
wow,
looks
really?
exactly like her. Her mannerisms are like her, so it's kind of like she came back to us in a way.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, I'll have to show you a picture. I'll do a little side by side, but they
Yeah.
it's it's crazy.
Wow. So how do you find like as you have new people entering your family and babies being born, obviously they'll never get to know your sister, but how will you tackle that? Is that something that you'll always say, oh, my sister, your auntie, whoever, they were like this,
Yeah.
and this is their picture?
Hmm. Even when so I have two nieces. Ava knew Susie. She was only a little over 2.5 when she passed away. So she still talks to her. She remembers her. But we still talk about her. We tell her stories, show her pictures. But with Kenzie, We have a big picture of Susie in our living room. So my dad's always like, "That's Susie." She takes her up to her room, and he says, "Say goodnight to Susie." So
Oh, it's lovely.
she knows she'll always know that Susie's her aunt. And my before my sister knew she was pregnant, she said she had a dream that Susie came to her and told her you were gonna have a baby, and she found out maybe like 2 weeks or a week later that she was pregnant.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
So,
crazy.
maybe they met each other up there. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
Susie, Ava and Kenzie will always know they have. I'm one of five, so they know that they have three aunts.
yeah,
My brother, but
yeah. No, I'm a big believer in all that kind of stuff. Every time I speak to my medium, he's always hanging out with my granddad. He's like they're two peas in the pod, they're all giggling together, and again that's lovely because I think, well, my belief is that it's, each time if we do have multiple lives or whatever, it's the same souls. So, but we always find each other in a way. So
yeah,
again, even yeah, if there is like a repeat, you have a baby and it's like, wow, they look so much like whoever in your family you can trace back. Is Yeah, I think that there is a bit of that out there,
yeah,
and
even
again, that's comforting.
yeah, we look at her, we're like, that's. But then I hold her, and it makes me sad because I'm like, I feel like I'm holding like a baby Susie.
Yeah.
And then it makes me feel sad that Susie would never get to meet her or play with her. Then I feel guilty that I get to watch them grow up, and it's like a snowball effect.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of hard. That might be hard for some people to understand,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
you
I
know.
do think they're watching though, and they always know what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think they're having a great time up there, and we're down here like in the carnage of it all. But they know what's happening. They can see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we can hope, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll just have more stories to tell them when we get there.
Yeah. Hopefully not for a long time, but
Yeah, hopefully.
but
Yeah, yeah. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
they'll be waiting for us.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yes. Yeah, it's weird because sometimes, it's one of those things. All these people that aren't going to meet our sibling now. I think again, that's you're doing the right thing. It's so important to show pictures and still make them. They're still relevant. They're still a part of their life, even though they never
Yeah.
met. It's that still, yeah, it's still something that they shouldn't be forgotten or, you know,
Yeah.
put under the carpet kind of thing because it's not, it shouldn't be taboo. Okay, they're
Right.
not here anymore, but they are still important.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, the girls will never not know about her.
Yeah, yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. But it was very lovely talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised I didn't cry. I'm glad I didn't manage to get everything out I wanted to say, which is great. But yeah, thank you for having me on and yeah, just being there and listening. And again, I'm sorry that you've lost your sister and that we're both in this predicament.
Yeah, me
But
too.
hats off to you for creating a platform to talk about it and to get it out there. Because as you say, if anyone watches any of your videos and gets any comfort from it, then that is massive because it,
Yeah.
it is such a lonely, even though there's billions of people out there all going through different types of grief and tragedy, it's still a lonely process.
It is. Yeah. But it's wonderful hearing about Bryn. And if you ever want to talk, even like off camera, I'm here.
Well, same to you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. But definitely send me the side by side
I
photos.
will. Yeah.
Love
I'm
to
going to
see
send it to you
that.
as soon as we log off.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. You enjoy the rest of your night. It's
Yes,
getting
well, enjoy
getting
the
pretty
rest of
late
your
there, right?
day.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. We'll
Okay,
talk soon,
fabulous.
hopefully.
Yeah, no problem. Well,
All
take
right.
care.
You too.
Alrighty,
All right.
bye.
Bye-bye.